My spouse was unfaithful with her superior, and my daughters kept it secret, so I severed all ties and rewrote my will, leaving them stunned. For nearly 3 decades, I believed I had the kind of life most people only hope for. I married Jane when we were both still young. She was 20, I was 22. Back then, we didn't have much, but we were content. We built everything from the ground up and raised 2 daughters, Alice and Maddie. They were my world, my pride and joy. Alice, the elder, is 26 now. She's always been the high achiever, top of her class in high school, graduated first in college, and she's set to marry her longtime partner this fall. Maddie, the younger one, is 24. She's always been more relaxed, kind-hearted, always smiling, and incredibly close to me since childhood. I always believed we had a strong connection. Jane and I seemed to have a solid relationship, or so I thought. Sure, we had our rough patches, money issues when the kids were small, occasional disagreements, health problems, but we made it through all of that. I thought we were a team. I truly believed we'd grow old side by side, that we'd be that elderly couple chuckling on the porch about our youth. I loved her with all I had. Everything shattered just last week. It was an ordinary weekday. Jane told me she was heading out for dinner with Alice and Maddie. This was nothing new. They had these girls' nights every few weeks. Time to catch up, laugh, and talk about things they didn't want to share with me. I never minded. I actually felt proud that they were so close. It made me feel like I'd done something right as a husband and a dad. That evening, Jane was getting dressed upstairs. I was downstairs, drinking coffee and scrolling through headlines on my phone. I remember it so vividly. Her phone buzzed on the counter. Totally normal. She gets messages from the girls constantly, especially when they're coordinating plans. I picked it up without thinking. What I did next, I'm not proud of. I had no reason to be suspicious, but something made me open the message. It was from an unsaved contact. "Can't wait to see you tonight." I froze. At first, I was just puzzled. It didn't make sense. I thought it had to be a misunderstanding. Or maybe I was misreading it. I stared at that one line, my thoughts racing. Eventually, I opened the message thread. What I saw devastated me. There weren't many messages, but they didn't need to be. They said enough. They made everything clear. The texts were from her employer. They had dinner plans, and it was obviously not work-related. The messages were flirtatious, affectionate. There were others from earlier that week. "Isn't he? I miss you. Once a week doesn't cut it." Jane had replied, "He signed me. Miss you too." My stomach churned. My chest tightened. My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped the phone. This was my wife, the woman I'd shared my entire adult life with, the mother of my children. She was cheating. I didn't know how to react. One part of me wanted to storm upstairs and confront her right then, but I couldn't. I was in shock. I needed time to wrap my head around what I'd just seen. I needed certainty. A few minutes later, Jane came down. She was all dressed up, as beautiful as ever. She smiled warmly, kissed my cheek, and said, "Don't wait up, all right?" Her voice was so casual, so sweet, like everything was perfectly normal. I still don't know how I managed to keep my composure, but I smiled back and said, "Have a great time with the girls." As soon as the door shut behind her, I picked up her phone again and turned on location sharing. I'd never done anything like that before. I'd never felt the need to track her, or anyone else. But in that moment, none of that mattered. I needed to know what was really going on. I stayed in the kitchen, staring at my phone, waiting for the location to ping. When it finally updated, my heart sank even further. She wasn't going to the usual restaurant where she and the girls normally met. She was heading somewhere else, a place that held memories for us, somewhere we'd visited often as a family. I texted Alice and Maddie. "What time are you meeting Mom for dinner?" Both replied quickly. Alice said, 7 p.m. Can't wait to see her." Maddie responded with something similar. They were lying. My own daughters were lying to me. I was stunned. I didn't want to believe it, but deep down I knew. Jane wasn't the only one deceiving me. The girls were involved, too. I waited a bit longer, watching Jane's location. Eventually, she arrived at the restaurant. I grabbed my keys and drove there, my pulse racing the entire drive. When I got there, I parked outside and peered through the window. It didn't take long to spot her. She was seated in the back across from her boss. They were laughing, holding hands, completely unaware they were being watched. It was like a blade through the heart. I pulled out my phone and took a photo of them. I can't even explain why I did it. Maybe I needed proof, for myself, that this was real, that I wasn't just imagining things. Then I drove away. Sitting in my car, staring at that image of my wife with another man, a storm of emotions hit me. Rage, sorrow, disbelief. I didn't know how to move forward. I didn't have the strength to confront her, not yet. Instead, I opened our family group chat and sent the photo without any explanation. Just a simple caption. So glad you're enjoying girls' night. Then I powered off my phone and drove to my brother's place. I couldn't handle the aftermath yet. I wasn't ready to deal with any of it. That night, lying awake on my brother's guest bed, I stared at the ceiling, trying to make sense of how my entire world had collapsed in mere hours. I'd always seen myself as a loyal husband, a devoted father, but now I wasn't sure anymore. Everything I thought I knew, my marriage, my family, my home, felt fake. I didn't go back that night. I couldn't bring myself to. After sending that photo and switching off my phone, I just drove aimlessly for a while before finally pulling into my brother's driveway. It was late, but he didn't ask many questions when he let me in. He could tell something was seriously wrong. It must have been written all over my face. I didn't go into the details. I just said I needed a place to stay. He offered me a drink, but I declined. I just wanted to be alone. I spent that whole night lying on his couch, eyes wide open, unable to rest. My mind kept replaying everything. Seeing Jane and her boss together, the way she laughed, how they leaned in close, their hands intertwined like high school sweethearts. It made me feel sick. How long had it been happening? How had I been so blind? And then there was Alice and Maddie, the ease with which they lied like it was no big deal. I raised them, to be honest, to have principles. Yet there they were, covering up their mother's infidelity. That cut even deeper. The next morning, I finally turned my phone back on. It immediately buzzed with missed calls, voicemails, and messages. Jane had called me more times than I could count. Alice and Maddie had sent texts, too. I couldn't handle reading them all at once, so I skimmed. Jane's messages were exactly what I expected. Please call me. I can explain. It's not what you think. We need to talk. I didn't listen to her voicemails. I couldn't bear to hear her voice. I knew it would just reopen the wound. Maddie's messages were different. She sent long, heartfelt texts, one after another. Dad, I'm so sorry. I never should have lied. I hate myself for it. Please don't hate me. Can we talk? I'm terrified. I've ruined everything. Her boyfriend even texted me. Hi, this is Josh. Maddie's having a panic attack. She's afraid you'll never forgive her. Please call her. I didn't reply to either of them. I didn't even know what to say. Alice, on the other hand, sent something short and cold. Ted, I'm sorry you found out like this, but you're overreacting. Don't throw away a good marriage over one mistake. Overreacting? One mistake? My blood boiled. This wasn't a simple misstep. This was a deep betrayal, not just from Jane, but from Alice and Maddie, too. They all deceived me. I started to think back on how many times they must have lied right to my face. All the dinners, all the laughs, all the family time, just a front. They knew what Jane was doing. They let me believe everything was fine. I spent that day drowning in anger and sorrow. My brother tried to talk to me, but I wasn't ready to say anything. I needed time to clear my head. By the afternoon, I knew I couldn't let it slide. I started with Maddie. My text was brief. Maddie, I love you, but you've hurt me more than you can imagine. I need space. She replied right away. I'm so sorry, Dad. I'll never forgive myself. I love you so much. I didn't answer. Then I messaged Alice. This wasn't a mistake. This was a betrayal by my whole family. Please don't reach out until I'm ready. She didn't respond, but I figured she must have shown Jane the message because Jane started texting me again. Don't take this out on the girls. They were just trying to protect me. They didn't mean to hurt you. I ignored her. I wasn't interested in hearing excuses. That evening, I finally told my brother the whole story. I showed him the texts, the photo, everything. He was furious on my behalf. You need to cut them all off, he said. If they don't respect you, why keep them in your life? His words hit hard, because deep down, I knew he was right. But cutting off my daughters, that was something I wasn't sure I could do. Not yet. That night, I started thinking through what would come next. My marriage to Jane was clearly over. There was no salvaging it. I didn't even want to try. But what about Alice and Maddie? Could I ever trust them again? Could I ever look at them without remembering what they'd done? I decided I needed time. Time to think. Time to figure out how to go forward. But one thing was certain. My old life was gone. What followed wasn't like an explosion. It was more like a slow, heavy collapse. By the time I returned to my brother's place that night, I wasn't even angry anymore. I was numb. The fury, the heartbreak, the shock, it had all dulled into a thick weight on my chest. The life I thought was solid had cracked wide open, and all I could do was watch it fall. The first thing I noticed when I turned my phone back on was the silence. Earlier, it had been buzzing with alerts. Now, nothing. No new texts from Maddie, no follow-ups from Alice, nothing more from Jane. Maybe they realized I wasn't responding and gave up, or maybe they were regrouping. I didn't care. The quiet left room for my thoughts, and that wasn't exactly comforting. When the anger faded, all that remained was pain. Endless questions circled in my head like a storm. How long had this been going on? How many lies had Jane told right to my face? Did Alice or Maddie ever feel even a shred of guilt? Or had betrayal just become routine? That night, I sat with my brother and told him everything. He didn't say much at first, just listened. I laid it all out. The texts, the lies, the photo I took, the message I sent to the group chat before disappearing. When I was done, he leaned back in his chair and said, "Man, that's messed up. I always thought Jane was a little too perfect, you know? But this? And the girls? Wow. That's just low." It felt oddly validating hearing someone else say it out loud. Like maybe I wasn't losing my mind after all. My brother was fuming, and in that moment it helped. But his anger couldn't fix anything. What I really needed was clarity, a way forward, and I didn't have it. The following morning, I made myself stop wallowing. I needed to act. First step, finances. I couldn't afford to fall apart emotionally if I didn't protect myself legally. I spent the whole day separating our accounts, moving funds to an account Jane couldn't touch, locking down anything vulnerable. I wasn't going to let her use my grief as leverage. And it wasn't just Jane. I kept thinking about the tens of thousands I'd spent, or planned to spend, on Alice's wedding. All that money for a daughter who stood by while her mother betrayed me. The thought turned my stomach. I made a note to speak to my lawyer. I couldn't get that money back, but I sure as hell wasn't paying another dime. By the afternoon, I was ready for the next move. I started calling attorneys. My brother had suggested I meet with a few, so I spent the day telling my story to strangers who tried to remain neutral while clearly judging everything. By evening, I'd chosen one. She was sharp, no nonsense, and most importantly, tough. I told her I wanted this handled quickly and cleanly, but Jane wasn't walking away with anything she didn't earn. She assured me she'd handled plenty of cases like this. That didn't ease the pain, but at least I felt protected. That night, alone again in the guest room, I started drafting what I'd say to Jane. I hadn't confronted her yet. I'd avoided it, partly because I didn't trust myself to stay calm, and partly because I didn't want to hear her justifications. Nothing she could say would change what she did. Still, I knew it had to happen eventually. When it did, I wanted to be ready. I wrote everything down. What I needed to say, questions I wanted to ask, points I had to make. I didn't know if I'd read from it or speak from the heart, but writing gave me a sense of control. Like maybe I wasn't just a victim anymore. Thinking about Alice and Maddie was harder. I hadn't spoken to them since that night. I didn't know how I could. How do you rebuild trust with your children after they've lied to your face for months? I wanted to believe Maddie's apology was sincere, but how could I trust it? And Alice, her cold, dismissive reply had cut me deeper than I wanted to admit. I always knew she sided more with her mom, but this was something else. That night, I made another hard choice. I wasn't going to chase after them. If they wanted to make things right, they'd have to come to me. I wasn't begging for their forgiveness or their explanations. They made their decisions. Now they'd live with them. Lying in bed, staring at the ceiling once again, I felt something new, calm. For the first time since this nightmare started, I didn't feel completely lost. I had a plan. It wasn't perfect. It wouldn't fix everything, but it was a beginning. I was done being the one who was hurt. From now on, I was taking charge. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next video.